Okay, we are live now. You can go out.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Being with us this morning, with this lovely morning. Actually, I'm very honored to present you today my friend, my very close friend, and we can say dost, and also Rafiki, my roadmate, brother Farrukh Raza. He is the chairman of Government Ethics Board of AAOIFI, Egypt Board Chairman, and also he's long been the very active, figurehead in Islamic finance. Actually, he has two companies like IFES and IFIN, as far as I know. Mashallah, he's very active, and he's the missioner of Islamic finance. You could see him somewhere, sometimes in Asia, sometimes in Africa, sometimes in the Gulf. So he's everywhere to promote Islamic finance. So this is really honor today to have him with us. Brother Farrukh Raza, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
He's also lover of Turkey and Istanbul. Actually, I wish to have that meeting physically also, but inshallah we're gonna have it. Brother Farrukh Raza, actually I just would like to introduce you as much as I could, but please introduce yourself to the followers of the meeting, and how could you, actually I knew that you have a wonderful childhood story. Maybe you may share as much as you can, starting from Pakistan, end up with Paris, and then to London. Again, welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I'm really honored, to be honest. I cannot express enough my gratitude to you, Brother Ahmed, and Teka Bebe, and the organizers of this webinar. I've done a lot of them, as you can imagine, but I think this one is a bit special because I think it's more like, as you said, between friends. So it's between those. So I really appreciate that, and thank you for introducing me. I think you have said enough, but yeah, I will do a little bit of background on myself as well. Alhamdulillah, I was born in Pakistan. I grew up in France, in Paris. Then I moved to the UK. Have been living there for around 22 years now. I entered Islamic finance industry just by coincidentally, to be honest. I never actually planned. I didn't even know that there was an Islamic finance industry. There was no industry in those days. I think it was the very early days of the industry. But yeah, 18 years ago I entered the industry coincidentally, and my view upon entry was I will stay about 6 months, in the first Islamic bank that was being set up in the UK. At that time, that was in 2004. And the objective was to learn a little bit about Islamic finance. What exactly do we mean by that? How do we do that? And that's it pretty much, So it was more of my own learning that I wanted to do. But subhanallah, Allah, is, always plans differently. So Allah had planned differently for me. And I went into this bank as part of the management team, only for 6 months. And I was very clear, with my recruiters in the beginning that I'm here only for 6 months. So I'm just being upfront, and I will leave in 6 months time. They said, fine. I was in the bank for almost 3 years. And then I have been in the industry for 18 years now. And
Islamic Bank of Britain, right?
Sorry?
Islamic Bank of Britain.
Islamic Bank of Britain, or IBB, as we used to call it in those days. It's now called Al Rayyan Bank. It's still, existing, thriving, mashallah. And, we are very proud of, having, set up this bank and, played an instrumental role in introducing Islamic finance to the mainstream in the UK, and also, in other parts of, Europe as well. So a number of projects, much smaller in scale, but they did follow in the UK, also in Germany, in France, and so on and so forth. So it has been actually a pioneer in Islamic finance in Europe. So yeah, over the last 18 years, I have been very actively involved, and I consider myself extremely blessed, because to date, alhamdulillah, I have had the opportunity to do Islamic finance projects across 51 different jurisdictions as I speak. And it's around 4 continents in the world, all the way from the Caribbean region to the Philippines on the other side, and a lot of Africa and Europe and Middle East, as you said. So this is a great blessing, alhamdulillah. And yeah, it was a very exciting ride. It was a roller coaster indeed, but it was worth it. It was worth it. Many people say, if you get this chance again, would you do that? And I 100% guarantee that I'll do it again if I had the chance. But alhamdulillah, yes, over the last few years, I became involved very much with the industry standard setting bodies as well, and specifically with AAOIFI. Where I was selected as the member of the governance and ethics board, and then later I was elected the chairman as well. So yes, I'm currently chairing the board, and we are trying to come up with the industry standards that will help inshallah the industry and the industry players and all stakeholders to have a better governance within the industry, and a more strong and powerful ethics as well, inshallah.
Thank you, brother.
So, yeah, this is in a nutshell. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the great introduction. Actually, you already started to talk about AAOIFI, and I mean, for the followers of meeting, would you describe AAOIFI and as far as you know, and its importance in the Islamic finance industry, and how they are helping industry to grow, and would you little bit detail the AAOIFI to the audience, please?
Sure. So let me go back a little bit, to my own experience again. When we started working on Islamic Bank of Britain, and then later on when I moved on, from the bank, I resigned and I set up IFAS, Islamic Finance Advisory and Assurance Services, as a dedicated consultancy for Islamic finance industry. And we were, very much involved in setting up Islamic windows across the UK, then in France, then setting up the first kaful company in the UK, and many other projects as well, right? What we clearly felt actually in those days was that there is a dire need of having something more central, a benchmark as a point of reference where everybody can refer to, because there were so many different perceptions about Islamic finance. Everybody understood something of their own of Islamic finance. The expectations were so different. The interpretations of Sharia were different, and there was a big vacuum actually in the the way the business was conducted in the industry. There wasn't much precedence actually. So we started looking around, okay, so what else is available? And then, I came across AAOIFI. So AAOIFI, standing for Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Finance, institutions. So interesting. This is, an organization based in Bahrain. What exactly they do? So we looked at it, and the first thing that we came across was actually, the Sharia standards. So that was very interesting. And in those days, they didn't have many, standards. So it was still, I think, a bit early days of AAOIFI. They have been existing for a few years. There were, I think, around 20-ish, Sharia standards. So very, basic points were covered already. The needs were covered, but not too much detail. And there were some governance standards as well. The basic ones, for example, how to set up a Sharia board, and a few other things, etc., but not much. So we started looking at these Sharia standards, etc., and it was very helpful. So we said, okay, this is very interesting. we really need to explore this organization, and probably we need to learn more from them, and we need to support them as well. So I remember it was somewhere, I think maybe around 2000, 7, 8, when I first time, I visited AAOIFI in their, offices in Bahrain. And it was a good meeting. We came to know each other, and they used to sell books, hard copy books of the standard. So we purchased a couple of those copies as well in Arabic and in English in those days. So that was the only two versions they had. Those standards became very handy for us, because then suddenly we had a benchmark, and we came to know that there is actually a consensus. So the biggest issue that we were facing was this objection from the stakeholders in within the industry, who might be the regulators, who might be the practitioners, who might be actually even the customers, right? Saying, how do we know this is Sharia compliant? How do we know that this is accepted by all scholars? What if I have any issues later, and so on and so forth? What is the risk of Sharia non-compliance here, etc. So, the Sharia standards, they became very handy. Because then we were able to, inform people or educate them that there is actually a standard setting body that is composed, that has a Sharia board of its own. And this Sharia board is drawn from different, backgrounds of, or different scholars or different regions of the world, where there is a representation of scholars from different, schools of, jurisprudence. There is a representation of different schools of thought, and so on and so forth. So this is to be seen as a consensus or as an ijma of today's scholarly world. So that was very helpful in us gaining the the confidence in the Islamic finance as a concept, as products, and then disseminating this confidence to the other stakeholders as well. So that was a very good experience, and it gave us a very clear indication that this is the way forward, and we really need to work very closely with this organization. We need to benefit from the standards that they are doing by not adopting them ourselves within our own business, but also helping them promote to the other industry, because the more these standards are adopted and implemented, the better it becomes for everyone, because then we are collectively working towards the same thing. And we are working around, in accordance with the same practices. So hence we started, this relationship with AAOIFI, where we supported them a lot, also in our own humble way as we can. Taking them to, France, for example, which was a completely new market at that time, or the French-speaking world. Not actually France, but actually the French-speaking world. So, a big part of Africa that speaks French was a sort of completely disconnected, from Islamic finance in those days, because of the language barrier and so on. So, we try to, bring people over, and sudden, small, in a small way, try to, introduce people, to these things. And it was very helpful. It was a long, journey. It took, many years actually to go through this. But Alhamdulillah, the management in AAOIFI also, changed, and the new leadership, they realized actually that things are to be done in a different way, and there is actually a huge need out there. So then they started translating the standards. So while there were new standards coming, so the standards were growing, the number of standards were growing, more and more topics and issues were covered. The variety of the standards was also increased. So not only Sharia standards, but then accounting standards, auditing standards, governance standards, and ethics, etc. So the range became much wider. And then also they started translating into other languages as well. So today, as I speak, you not only have in English and Arabic, but you have it in French, you have it in Russian, you have it in Turkish, you have it in Urdu, you have it even, I think, in Bengali, and many other languages as well. So this has been extremely helpful in bringing harmony to the industry, and addressing some of the key issues and the key challenges that the industry was facing. With the interpretation of Sharia, with the accounting of the Islamic financial products, the auditing of, those, businesses and those institutions as well. And then, of course, governance remains, a big part of, Islamic finance, and then ethics as well. So it has been a great journey.
Yeah, let me intervene here. Thank you very much for the AAOIFI presentation. Actually, it's really great to have that, progress story of AAOIFI also. I think after you chipped in and, your colleagues internationally, AAOIFI also, recognize internationally, especially out of the Gulf region, and the necessity of the Sharia standards were so important. So disseminate this standard actually maybe would give extra opportunity to industry growth. Actually, here as the chairman of Egypt AAOIFI ethics and actually governance and ethics board. Yeah, governance and ethics board. We are talking about Sharia standards, and of course the Sharia standards is at the core of the industry actually, because without Sharia standards you cannot really establish those banks based on nothing. But let me learn also, since you mentioned your inception to Islamic finance. How do you know that how governments and ethics how to say requirements or necessities stemmed from, and how governments and ethics board establish, and what they're trying to do?
Yeah, thank you, Brother Ahmed. Traditionally, AAOIFI, I think, started with the Sharia board, and then, they added another technical board, I think, for the accounting standards.
Yes.
Then I think maybe around, 6-7 years ago, somewhere probably in 2015, 16, I think they felt the need of, having a third board, because Sharia board and the accounting board could not actually address, some other issues that were very, very important, but they were actually out of the remit of, these two boards. So hence the governance and ethics board was set up, the third technical board. So now AAOIFI has these three boards. Now Sharia standard, of course, it says, that it's dealing with the Sharia standards. The accounting board is dealing, with the accounting standards. The governance and ethics board is actually addressing, a very key area, and that is to do with the implementation of, the other two standards, right? So the Sharia, and so, because what is important in Islamic finance is, when a financial institution is offering products that it claims that are in accordance with AAOIFI Sharia standards, then there has to be a mechanism actually also to ensure that this claim is true, right? And a lot of times people, just perceive that, these standards they are related only to Sharia compliance, and, maybe just, giving the confidence to people, to the consumer, that their product or the financial institution that they are dealing with is Sharia compliant. But it actually goes much beyond. Why? Because from a regulatory point of view, this is also very, very important, because there are, a number of key concerns that the regulators have about any financial institution, and including Islamic financial institutions, and that is, consumer protection. Now, I give you an example, right? Or risk management as well, right? So I give you an example here. When people are, when the depositors of an Islamic financial institution are depositing their money on, on mudaraba basis, for example, or on wakala basis, or, whatever basis. So the financial institution is taking that deposit, and then they are investing that deposit on behalf of the depositor, right? And what does the agreement say? The agreement says that, in case there is a profit, either there will be a share of profit that will be, so the profit will be split between, the bank and the depositor, in accordance with a certain ratio, Or if it's wakala, then there will be a certain percentage that will be taken by the bank as a fee, and then the rest of the profit will be channeled to the depositor, and so on and so forth. Now, what mechanism is in place actually to make sure that this contract is being fulfilled, and the profit calculation and the profit allocation between depositors, etc., are different types of depositors and the bank are actually being implemented correctly. How to ensure that there is no conflict of interest between the bank, the financial institution, and the depositor. Actually, they are doing their level best to reach the maximum profit they can. They are investing in the right things, and so on and so forth. Similarly, when it comes to takaful, we have similar type of challenges, that how the funds are being managed, how the claims are being settled, and so on. So all these things, they are related directly to consumer protection. So whether the jurisdiction is Islamic or secular, or whatever by constitution or by jurisprudence, but it's actually a very, very important point from regulatory point of view. Regulator has the key responsibility of ensuring consumer protection, that people are actually being protected from any mishap, their risk is being managed in the best possible way, and moreover, the customer who is approaching or who is dealing with an Islamic financial institution must remain confident that their money is actually being dealt with in a true Islamic way. So because at any point, if it comes out that this is not happening and the Sharia compliance is being compromised, that can actually translate into very serious issues that can also create systemic risk in any jurisdiction. So that's why, from a regulatory point of view, also it's very important. Plus, giving the confidence to the customer, and so on and so forth, and better transparency, of course. So hence, governance, comes very, very important to make sure that the implementation of the Sharia standards, the implementation of accounting standards is being done correctly, so that there is transparency, there is responsibility, there is accountability, and there is correct financial reporting, and everybody is getting their fair share of whatever is due to them. So this is part of the Sharia compliance. And then, of course, the ethics are also very important in Sharia, because it's not about just doing things mechanically, 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Yeah, it's actually having a passion, having also living the spirit of Islamic finance, and that is by making sure that every individual who is actually working in the industry understands the spirit of this industry, and complies to the requirements, not only because they have to comply, but also that they believe in the spirit. And for that, we need a good code of conduct, if you want, or a code of ethics for people, to make sure that they are doing their duties properly, and they are acting in the best possible way, which is in the benefit of not only the customers, but also the financial institution, their employer, and other stakeholders, and so on and so forth. So it's about benefiting the wider society, not only just the individual, or just being just looking after the customer, but looking after everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Farrukh. It's a great explanation also. Let me, get the confirmation from you. You said you started Islamic banking career in 2004, as far as I remember.
Yes.
And it's approximately 20 years now. When you compare those years with nowadays, how do you see, progress or thriving, let's say, because this is a living and thriving industry and business model, let's say. So how develop it so far, and especially in terms of governance and ethics, and also Sharia wise, because you are advising so many countries, so many jurisdictions, and the financial institutions. How do you see the progress, and how I mean would or should us hopeful?
Thank you, Brother Ahmed. I think this is a very, very interesting question. Yes, I have witnessed, the evolution of industry over the last 18 plus years. And we have come a long, long way, really a long way, in these 18 years. So most of the things, not everything, but most of the things have changed, and they have changed tremendously for the better. And what I can tell you is that, when I started back in, 2004, it was, relatively new in Europe. It still existed, in a much more subtle way, in the UK for many years before that as well. But this is when it actually took a proper shape as a, a proper fully licensed financial institution. In other parts of Europe, it was still, very, very new. And in many other parts of the world, it was almost unknown at that time. So now I think Islamic finance has become much widely, known, much widely accepted. And Alhamdulillah, I think I'm very grateful and I'm very honored to be part of, some of that introduction to Islamic finance, to very distant parts of the world. This is on one hand. On the other hand, the number of financial institutions, the number of products that is, on offer now is, much bigger, much greater. And I think, we are faring much better than, what it was at that time. In terms of governance, things have improved significantly also, because in those days, what we had in names of governance was a Sharia board, an institutional Sharia board, right? So only institutional Sharia board. And I think there was like at maybe one country or two countries, who had some sort of central Sharia board, but mainly was just institutional Sharia boards. The terms of reference of those Sharia boards in those days were also very rudimentary. There was no concept of, Sharia audit. So most of the time, it will be just the, the members of the Sharia board or the institutional Sharia board, they will come and, once in a year, they will just get a few files and they'll just quickly go through them and, okay, happy or not happy, or, just make a few comments and that's it. This is the Sharia audit. We have moved significantly from there. Now we have, multiple number of jurisdictions, and that number is increasing, I think, every year. The countries that are having central Sharia boards now. So it's not only having institutional Sharia board or the Sharia supervisory board or the SSB that we call, but a lot of countries have actually introduced now central Sharia boards, which brings much more, order to to the sector in their jurisdiction, and it creates a link. There was a missing link between AAOIFI and the financial institution. The presence of central Sharia board actually fills that gap, and it completes the chain of hierarchy in a very nice way. Also, the terms of reference of the framework for the Sharia supervisory boards at institutional level has been enhanced significantly now. And there are new things that have been added in most of the jurisdictions. For example, the eligibility criteria for the members of the Sharia board, for having certain they need to meet certain conditions to qualify, and most of the time there will be like fit for purpose criteria. These sort of things have been implemented. Then a number of other things have been introduced. For example, the length of the term, the frequency of their appointment, and so on and so forth, the way the Sharia board is appointed, and so on. Also for the central Sharia board, the terms of reference have become very strong and clear now, giving them the authority that is required to implement things correctly, and working in collaboration closely with the regulators and so on. We have also introduced in the industry now Sharia audit, proper Sharia audit. I remember about maybe 12 years ago, when IFAS, I was at IFAS platform, we started talking about Sharia audit, and we made a presentation to many financial institutions, and we said, well, you need to do your Sharia audit. And I can tell you, Brother Ahmed, very frankly, that we were actually thrown out, from many places. They said, what actually are you talking about? Why would we do Sharia? What is Sharia audit? We are already doing a financial audit. That's too much for us. Forget the Sharia audit. This is not going to work. we did not back off. We felt clearly, because we were in the industry, we were dealing with different types of financial institutions day in and day out. And we felt very clearly that there is actually a very strong need for Sharia audit. We need to bring more transparency. We need to bring better financial reporting. We need to enhance the disclosures, and we need to manage these conflicts of interest. And we have to make people accountable, for everything, to make sure that, the consumer is protected, the depositor is protected, the investor in the financial institution is protected. And, it's country, Islamic finance is effectively contributing to the economic development, to the real economy. So it's not just a gimmick, that is, okay, Islamic, and then, that's it, it just stops there. We have to really make it, more, constructive and more productive. But we had a great difficulty in, convincing people that, they need to have a Sharia audit. But alhamdulillah, we broke through with, a couple of, financial institutions that accepted the idea. And they said, actually, although it's not required, but it sounds good, so let's try this, and we'll do that. And when, they started implementing this Sharia audit, they actually started seeing the benefits, and it became a good case study for us as well. And we had to work very hard for a few years. But alhamdulillah, there were more people who joined us. Basically, we were not the only people, who were claiming this. So there were a lot of other people who came supporting the idea. And then we started seeing, the difference. And now, as I'm speaking, the majority of the jurisdictions in Islamic finance, they have actually implemented at least internal Sharia audit, right? And there is an increasing number of jurisdictions that have also introduced external Sharia audit as well. And meanwhile, the AAOIFI's Governance and Ethics Board has actually issued multiple standards on Central Sharia Board, on internal audit, on external audit, and not only the standards, but also the implementation guidelines as well, right? So there has been a lot of work, and today, it's actually much more robust, I would say. And that need of better transparency, better governance actually has been met to a very fair degree. And of course, there is always room for improvement, and there is more to go. But I think we have come a long way from there, which is very helpful in enhancing the industry. Unfortunately, a few things haven't changed. For example, still a lot of people, the consumers, questioning, is it really Sharia compliant, brother? Is it really Islamic? Subhanallah, there is actually a lack of trust somewhere in many jurisdictions, and some of them are even, the stronger, Muslim countries as well. But still, there is a little bit of, due to some legacy issues or whatever, there is a little bit of lack of trust. But I hope, inshallah, that with the implementation of these standards, with these best practices, these issues of your concern will also disappear slowly, inshallah. So this is my perspective on, the evolution.
Brother, thank you very much. Actually, while you are just drinking your water, maybe I would integrate another question which you stopped from. Actually, you said, time to time, customers or depositors who have mistrust on the business model and the industry. What do you think about this? How industry or the employers of Islamic finance, or management of Islamic finance, or institutions of Islamic finance like AAOIFI may overcome this? What it could be done? In general, of course, this is hours of talking opportunity, but since I got you here, so one of the prominent speaker of Islamic finance, what's your insights about the topic, please?
Thank you, Brother Ahmed. I think you have, hit the nail that actually hurts a lot. I think it's a pity that, Islamic finance industry, despite all the growth and all, the improvements that we have talked so far, it is still, not really unlocking its full potential in my personal view. I may be wrong, I stand corrected, but this is what I feel, and this feeling is not just a gut feeling. It's actually something very scientific and based on my own very, very extensive experience of nearly 2 decades. And this is where this issue of resemblance of Islamic financial products with the conventional products that kicks in, right? Because until now, what has been done is actually the general approach of Islamic finance has been, okay, let's take a conventional product, look at it, Islamize it. So take the haram components out, replace them with halal components. Okay, now we have a Sharia compliant product. Okay, take it to the market. Now, whether it's Sharia compliant or not, it is. In my view, it is Sharia compliant. There's no issue with that. But it still resembles a lot with with conventional products, because there is a lack of awareness among the Muslim consumer, let alone the general consumer. Because first thing I want to clarify, for me, Islamic finance is not for Muslims only. Islamic finance is for everyone. This is a financial proposition. It's a different concept of money. It's a different concept, it's a different approach, towards the economic activities and the financial activities, and it has to be open for everyone. Now, obviously, because it's Islamic, the primary audience will be always the Muslim community in any jurisdiction, and then of course there is the wider community, the non-Muslims as well, who should be always considered as part of the market. However, let alone the wider audience, even the Muslim audience is actually struggling to understand the difference between conventional and Islamic products so far, right? Because of this resemblance, right? The features are very similar, it's almost the same. So people will get confused and they will say, well, it's almost the same, it's just a change of name. Now, this change of name is, a myth that has been created for a long time, unfortunately, and it's not going away because of these issues. So there is lack of awareness among the consumer of the product. There is lack of, I think, creativity from the side of the financial institutions, and there is also probably lack of courage as well. And I will talk about this lack of courage a bit later, but let's focus on these two things first. So lack of awareness needs to be addressed among the consumers, and people need to be given that confidence. So as a consumer, they need to have this confidence that yes, if it's being sold as an Islamic financial product, then it is Sharia compliant, and they should be able to trust it. That's one thing. Second thing is that they should also be able to trust the credibility, the competence of the financial institution, its management, and the regulators who are, supervising the financial institution. So that needs also to be there to make sure that this financial institution is operating exactly in the same way as any other conventional financial institution in the same market. So these things, they need to be there. The financial institutions or the industry needs to, I think, be more creative in bringing out the value of, the true Islamic finance spirit, which unfortunately I see is lacking, and it's lacking, I think, significantly. And what I mean by that is that instead of mimicking our products, to the conventional and just making them Sharia compliant, this should not be the objective. This may be acceptable for the first, a few years, maybe, a couple of decades, but no more. I think now it's time that we have to really move on to the next stage. And that next stage, in my view, is to be, to have this courage. And this is where the courage comes in, right? To have this courage to let people know, let the world know that this is a different system. This is a different financial system. So it should not be perceived, it should not be treated as the same way as the conventional system or the conventional products. This is a completely different philosophy, right? And for that, we have to make sure that the products that we are offering are not trying to just match with the conventional, but we bring out products that are genuinely Islamic, that are based entirely on the structures that are purely Islamic, and they are not really resembling anything else, right? For example, if a business is looking for money, so instead of course you can give them a Sharia compliant debt. That's possible. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. It depends on different circumstances. But if a business also gets some participatory, in Turkey it's called participation finance. So if they actually get some participatory capital, and there are different ways of doing it in a relatively secure way, so we remain true to the Sharia requirements of participatory contracts like mudaraba or musharaka, etc. And then we also give them the exposure, and we manage the risk in a proper way. That will be a completely different proposition for the business. So it will help people see the value. It will help people understand the difference. It will help people gain the confidence into this. But for that, we need courage. The industry needs courage, and what that courage is required at all levels. It's required on the regulatory level. So the regulators, they need to understand that they are dealing with a completely different beast, right? So the current regulation that they have may not be appropriate for this framework. So maybe a different type of regulation is required. Maybe we are trying to fit a square in a round hole, and that's why we are struggling. It's not working because it's not adequate. So we need to bring adequate regulation according to that. The Sharia scholars, they need to also have the courage to say, okay, enough, we have done this for many years, but now we need to move on. And they push and they encourage the financial institutions and the regulators actually to offer new types of products, right? And then finally, the consumers also need to have the courage of, if there is a risk of loss, for example, in their deposit, it does not mean inherently that there will be a loss, right? It's just the nature, the spirit of the contract, but give them the exposure as well, and do not put caps on the profit rates that are being paid to them, because that just takes away the excitement from the product altogether. So the way I compare this Islamic finance, the next level of Islamic finance is actually I use things like crowdfunding or cryptocurrencies for as a benchmark, as an example. 10 years ago there was nothing known as crowdfunding, right? And then 5 years ago, almost, or 6 years ago, there was nothing known as cryptocurrencies, right? Yet these things have come into market, and they have made their space. So nobody said that crowdfunding is actually like banking. This is almost banking. So let's run crowdfunding. Let's manage or supervise crowdfunding, regulate crowdfunding with banking regulation. Cryptocurrencies and these other types of these security tokens and all these things that have come recently, nobody said that this is actually banking and this is insurance, so we are going to work in the same regulation. So the regulators have accepted, the market has accepted that these things are different and they need different regulation, and hence you see a number of jurisdictions actually issuing new regulations. They are accepting now this financial technology. There is so much of digital regulation coming on, so people are accepting and they are embracing this reality that there is a different type of proposition in the market, and it requires a different approach. So if the cryptocurrencies, if the crowdfunding, for example, has managed actually to get new type of regulation, get recognized and accepted as a different proposition, then why can't we have the same for Islamic finance? It's just that we have to stop saying that it is something that resembles conventional banking, it resembles conventional finance, and it can be regulated with the same regulation. We have to make sure that people understand now, and we show them that this is different and it requires a different approach. There is no harm in that at all, and I'm sure that the regulators and the stakeholders around the world will be very much, I think they will be happier to see that there is actually more clarity and there is a different approach towards making Islamic finance more mainstream and bringing out as an alternative, a real alternative, as a financial proposition. Sorry, I was too long.
No, it's wonderful. I'm just actually there are some questions also would come, but let me. I mean, first I address my question. Actually, I mean, this is very valuable insights. Actually, Islamic finance, inshallah, will become the alternative financial business model for whole, I mean, people in the universe. As you said, Islamic finance mostly started with the Islamic banks. And Islamic banks is known the representative of Islamic finance, and that's all. And it's the mimic of conventional one. So and that idea, that concept, it doesn't take us anywhere. But I mean, if the especially Muslims, who has awareness and shu'ur, let's say, could pave the way to new initiatives like our Wadi Research and Implementation Center we are after for. Actually, for instance, we are just missing the need of poor people who are living under the basic industry standards, and they need finance time to time. They need aid, help, all the time. And as you said, for the entrepreneurs, Islamic banks can do very little. But we need to address this. Maybe Islamic crowdfunding can help. Islamic microfinance can help. Actually, we are just at the last AAOIFI meeting. I have personally noticed that we have wonderful and very professional zakat institutions in Britain and in Malaysia, in some other jurisdictions also. So maybe we are missing the social finance side of Islamic finance. What do you think about this? And then if you just tie it to Islamic fintechs, you already did it actually as you described the new currencies. But how do you address the this ecosystem cannot just be fulfilled with the Islamic banks. We need some more institutions, and as you said, regulators and especially the social civil society would bring new ideas, and universities may support that, and we need to come up with the new ideas and new business models just to complete the social side of Islamic finance, I believe. And I knew that AAOIFI is also as corporate and ethics board, we are working on that. Maybe you can just explain as a comprehensive way.
Sure. Well, thank you, Brother Ahmed. Yes, you, I think, said the key word, and that's the ecosystem. So, yeah, today, Islamic finance is very heavily centered around Islamic banking. And then, the second, I think, most prominent instrument is Sukuk. And then the rest of the things, they are there, but they're very small and they're very little. And there is a huge room for growth in these areas. And you're absolutely right that we are not addressing, the needs of the society. There is actually a lot of requirement, for development funds, for poverty alleviation, for, supporting the startups and, the entrepreneurs and, promoting the entrepreneurial culture and so on. That is not happening, unfortunately, not at a large scale, at least. So there are some countries, for example, Indonesia, Malaysia, who have actually, and, to some degree, Turkey also now, that have started, going into that direction, but still, I think there's a lot of work required. And, most of the other jurisdictions, they are still far away from there. So we definitely need to, focus on, banking and sukuk. Of course, they are very important, but then we have to really diversify into other, segments also, or other, components of this ecosystem. So it's, very important. And I believe that one of the things that has been actually preventing, the growth of Islamic finance, beyond a certain point was, due to the lack of technology, right? So because the very nature of Islamic products is different, so there will be a lot of buying and selling, and that will require, acquisition and signatures and, a certain process and so on and so forth. That can be sometimes, time taking. It can be sometimes, it can be, most of the cases, it will be actually quite costly as well. And when the operation is costly, the transactional cost is high, the Islamic financial institutions, they might not be actually able to do small transactions, for example, microfinance, right? So microfinance, one of the biggest impediments for microfinance is actually the cost of transaction, because the transactions are so small that it becomes very, expensive, and that cost has to be, borne by the, by the person who is taking finance. So it becomes very difficult, for them, very challenging. So then we say that there isn't enough market. It's not that there isn't enough market; it's that actually we have to find new ways to get to this market, new route to market. And hence, I believe technology becomes very handy, because with technology, we can reduce the transactional cost significantly, substantially. We can have access now, with the advent of, these apps and, so on and so forth. And because, internet is becoming so widespread, we will be able to penetrate into those corners of the markets and, tap into those segments that were probably never accessible before, or if they were accessible, they were very restricted and very costly. Now, with the use of technology, we can make it much cheaper, much easier, much quicker, much more inclusive for everyone. And this is what we have tried to do. Actually, you mentioned IFIN. That's the, the Islamic fintech, that we have developed. Actually, we have launched just to address this issue and to help Islamic financial institutions go to, that level of outreach, if you want, to their customers in a very, what should I say, in a very efficient way. So they're making them more competitive. And the idea is actually, to bring everybody on board as much as possible. Now, there are other technologies as well that should be used. And I'm happy to see that there is a lot of work being done on Islamic digital banks. So there are, I think, a few digital banks in the process of setup in Turkey. There are, I think, at least, more than 2 or 3 projects in the UK and, in many other countries as well. So all these things, they will definitely help. But again, these are banks, right? So digital banks, but still banks. So we still need to focus on, insurance, on takaful, on, asset management, on, microfinance and so on. So these things will definitely require attention. And I think, the regulators are, giving attention, to them, but maybe some more work required. From, the industry standpoint, I think also, the work that AAOIFI has done so far, but also, the other standard setting bodies like IFSB and, IAFM, etc. They have also played an important role in, strengthening, the industry and, showing new ways, to the market players. So I believe that inshallah, it will be, very different, from what it is now in a few years' time. But it requires, a lot of, I think, hard work and commitment. And inshallah, it will just be better. I'm not sure if I answered all of your question or part of your question. If there is something missing, then
I believe you comprehend everything. Thank you very much in a very comprehensive way. Actually, of course, solving any problem, maybe we have to change our way of looking at things, way of assessing things. This is very, very important, and I think this is much more things to do. And inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us more time, inshallah, we can actually I think you are also believe that this is some way of serving Islam.
It is indeed, and I believe that it's also not only serving Islam, but it's serving the humanity. It's serving the humanity. It's saving the humanity from the perils of riba, right? That have not only been clearly stated in the Holy Quran, but also in the rest of the Abrahamic, religious scriptures as well.
Let's say.
Yes, and it is also proven by scientific research as well. So of course, there's a lot of scientific research on interest and the benefits of interest, but there's also a lot of scientific research available against interest, by the non-Muslims, not only the Muslims, but the non-Muslims as well. So in my view, this is a service to Islam, but it's also a service to humanity. If we can actually demonstrate to the world that there is a different approach possible, there is a different business model that allows treating money in a different way, it still allows you to benefit, from the growth opportunities. It helps you, create that economic value and, a more fair distribution, wealth distribution among the society, where everybody gets a fair share, of what is due to them, and the social finance that you mentioned in your previous question. That's what the part I was forgetting. The social finance is also an integral part of this service, and this social finance is again not only for Muslims but for anyone who will be able to benefit from it. And this should be, I think, the overall objective for me. So inshallah, I believe that if we work together and we join hands, between the different communities of Islamic finance, but also beyond, with the wider community, inshallah, it will be a much better proposition for all of us, and it will be a real alternative, for the whole world.
Yes, brother. Actually, I'm keeping you approximately 1 hour right now
No problem.
to talk about actually, and this is very early morning in England also. But I would like to just conclude with one question is related with Turkey. Then we can take the questions if the audience has some more. Actually, you are meeting with the Turkish people who are in the Islamic finance industry for years, and you are a frequent visitor of Istanbul and so also Ankara. So in and out the our Islamic finance industry growth and the development. And as you know, the government of Turkey also has aim to establish Istanbul Finance Center, and to promote Istanbul, Turkey, and also Islamic finance would get important stake out of it. So what do you think all of this? How do you see the Turkey's potential financially and humanly, let's say? Can it be a good initiative for Turkey, for Islamic finance? And what would you, advise as a prominent advisor to Turkey while establishing that, financial harbor in Istanbul?
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Ahmed. Yeah, you touched my heart. So I always, I love going to Istanbul as frequently as possible and for as long as possible. So to a point, inshallah, that in near future I'm probably going to spend a lot more time in Istanbul.
Inshallah.
It's always great. Turkey and Istanbul, I believe, are among the strongest players in the Muslim world. The economic power that Turkey has is, I think, obvious. It's a G20 economy, right? So only 3, Muslim countries are among the G20, and Turkey is one of them. And despite all the challenges that the country is facing, in different ways and forms, it's actually still faring, very well, mashallah. And people can, we can, agree or disagree with different policies and stuff and so on. This is different, there's a different thing. It's a matter of choice, but the reality is that Turkey has a great potential in Islamic finance. I have witnessed, for the last, 20 years or so, or 18 years since I have been in the industry, I have been actually visiting Turkey regularly as well. And I have witnessed when, there were, I think, 3 or 4, participation banks, and they were really small. It was, I would see probably one branch, in, a certain area, and, not very, very visible. It was sort of hidden, in those days, to a point now that, mashallah, I think 8% of the banking market share has been captured by, the participation banks, and they have become very mainstream. They have become, very big, prominent players in the Turkish, financial sector. And, this market share is growing, and the banks are, mashallah, becoming stronger. Now, you have 6, participation banks, and, the number of branches is just so obvious. You drive anywhere and you will see, loads and loads of them, and, the products are available. And, what I'm really actually, surprised and delighted with is that the Turkish Islamic banks, they are actually probably, I would say that they are offering the best technology at the moment. So at the technology front, you are doing very well, mashallah, maybe better than, many other countries. And also in terms of, the service levels are actually very good in Turkish Islamic banks compared to, unfortunately, in some other parts of the world. So this is good, and I believe that with the economic growth that Turkish economy is experiencing, and the opportunities, inshallah, is going to be bigger and better, and the future of Islamic finance in Turkey, in my view, is very bright. For me, this is very clear. And in terms of the financial center, I think this is a great move. And inshallah, it will bring a lot of opportunity to to the Turkish financial sector, and specifically the participation finance sector. My humble advice or opinion or suggestion, to the decision makers of this financial center is that please make sure that there is a dedicated strategy for participation finance, through promoted through this financial center. And the second thing I believe will be actually very helpful is having, of course, you can have, the standard Turkish jurisdiction, in the financial center, but because it's Islamic, it's international center, maybe it will be very beneficial to have a common law jurisdiction also within the financial center, because that will facilitate a lot of international transactions, and especially the participation finance, the cross-border transactions will be, I think, will be very much helpful in strengthening, the financial center. So participation finance on one hand and common law jurisdiction on the other hand, that will become, I think, a very strong, proposition for Islamic, cross-border transactions and, big deals. For example, whatever, these, for example, major sukuk issuances and, other corporate deals, etc. So a lot of that business can actually go through, through the future Istanbul, international financial center, inshallah.
Yeah. Brother, thank you very much. It was great to talk with you. Actually, I was looking at the questions right now. Maybe I can wait a couple of minutes if any question reaches me, but this is already more than I asked from you to spend with us.
No, it's okay. It's a few minutes we can talk, no problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, if we don't have the only questions I have right now, one of my brother asking me to ask you. Especially common people in Western countries, as well as in Muslim countries, get familiar how gracefully Islam approaches and handles responsibilities of parties in Islamic transactions. Their awareness towards Islamic trade law would be pushing them to embrace Islam as a whole. many non-believers would also be converting Islam upon this preciously set law. Yeah, I mean, this is his wishes, and I mean, of course, seeing the thing. What do you think about this?
Brother Ahmed, unfortunately, the question is not very clear to me. But if my understanding is correct, maybe if I think it's referring to the same point that I already mentioned.
Yes.
That if the transactions are actually, based on.
Actually, would you answer? When you answer this, would you also, a little bit touch upon the sustainability thing? Maybe, we can. You can give the last, words to the whole humanity. Maybe this is would be the nice definition.
I think for me, it's something very, very simple. Anything to do with Sharia is to do with sustainability. So any, Islamic financial product, if it's truly Islamic and Sharia compliant, then inherently it should be sustainable as well. It should be sustainable. The reason is very simple, right? What is the teachings that we have received? Even we are not allowed to break a leaf from a tree if we do not need it, right? This is, a very simple thing, but this is a basic lesson of sustainability. So we have to make sure that we do not abuse resources that we have on our, at our disposal today, and we have to preserve them, for the future, and we have to act responsibly in consuming those, those resources. So when this is the, the basic approach, then how can we imagine that, Islamic financial products, they will not support sustainability, they will do something else, right? So, whether what depending on what your definition of sustainability is, but for me this is very simple. Anything that is truly Sharia compliant is actually in accordance with the today's sustainability definitions, and this should be the case. So they cannot be separated. So I am not aware of any real Islamic financial product that goes against the sustainability or that abuses the resources or waste the resources. So for me, there is no waste at all. So if there is something happening, there is a waste of resources, and it goes against the the definition of sustainability, then there is some problem in the Sharia interpretation of that product in my.
Brother Farrukh Raza, thank you very much for being us today. I wish and pray may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you long and healthy and happy life spiritually and materially, so that you can serve better whatever you are serving right now in a much more efficient way. And jazakumullah khairan.
Thank you very much, Brother Ahmed. The pleasure is mine, and may Allah bless you and your family, and Tika Bebe, and everyone who has participated in this webinar. I think it was very different because I have actually spoken my heart, right? So I have not withheld anything. I have actually just shared my thoughts. They may not be pleasant. The things I said may not be pleasant for everyone, may not be acceptable for everyone, but I have at least said what I truly felt, and I just hope that inshallah Allah accepts this from us, the efforts that we are doing at individual and collective levels, and Allah guide us towards what is the best, inshallah, in this world and the hereafter. So thank you very much for your time and having me on this webinar, and I wish you and all the participants today a very peaceful day, inshallah, and a restful day as well.
Thank you very much, Brother Farrukh Raza, and thank you very much for everybody who are watch and listen to us today. We wish very happy and sunny days. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.